And Mr. Gall will probably hit you afterwards. So go to the doctor, eye doctor. He gives me a prescription for something which is 4 times a day, eye drop for the pain, and it costs me like $50, except I can't find it. The only thing I find is something which is taken twice daily, same active ingredient, and which costs me $400. Now, that clearly is not innovation. It is not a once monthly depot shot to prevent pregnancy or a once daily shot for HIV. It is something which allows them to remove the generic so that instead of paying $50, the patient's now paying $400. How do we differentiate true innovation from faux innovation, which frankly works to the detriment of the consumer?
Thank you very much for the question, Senator. I have to confess that the question of measuring innovation is not something that Pew has done any research on or is currently focused on, although certainly as a patient and as a consumer, it's on my mind all the time, every time I go to the doctor.
And let me go, Mr. Gall. Mr. Gall, how do we measure innovation? Something, because I am a big believer that innovation needs to be rewarded and that we need to have that profit motive for people to innovate. But I'm also recognizing that it's gamed at times so that I call it faux innovation, is merely gaming the patient. How would you respond?
Thank you, Senator Cassidy. So you bring up a great point, and we've always believed and felt that the generic and biosimilar industry does promote innovation and moves the innovator companies to better products, different products. But there is still some gaming that goes on, to your point. Whether it's a single daily dose or it used to be 3 times a day goes to a single, that's not necessarily an innovation, but it's really hard to judge how you stop that gaming, if you will.
Okay. Ms. Esham, Dr. Esham, I'm sorry. Clearly we want to bring drugs to market more quickly. And there's this discussion of using the accelerated approval with this reliance upon post-market data. Now, tell me, just kind of from your perspective, what various sources of post-market data could be used to evaluate whether something is of true innovative value and improves patient outcomes to make sure that whatever we're using it for is bringing value to the patient?
Certainly. I would say that, when we entered into the PDUFA agreements, we did recognize the need for improving how we design, have conversations pre-approval about post-market requirements associated with that are always required with accelerated approval, and improving processes post-approval to ensure that we're able to address challenges as they arise and not just let them hang there and not know a path forward. So the processes improvements in the commitment letter we do think will be helpful. In addition, I think more specifically probably to your question, is advancing the ability to utilize patient registries, real-world evidence that we do believe have the potential to offer more efficiencies and realistic pathways towards completing those requirements.
These are patient registries that you're establishing, or will this be borrowed from some master registry of EHRs, et cetera?
I don't think it's an either or, but happy to meet with you and your staff and discuss in more detail if that would be helpful.
Okay, Mr. Lee, I'm concerned. Cybersecurity. Now, there's a lot of medical devices that are going to be increasingly cyber, correct?
Yes.
And Senator Baldwin and I have a bill called the Patch Act, which requires a pre-market demonstration of cybersecurity measures and post-market updates for any issue discovered. Can you tell me a little bit of how the manufacturers are thinking about cybersecurity in the context of hospital networks or individuals who may be affected?
Thank you, Dr. Cassidy. As you noted, devices are becoming more interoperable each day. And, MDMA is part of the HSCC. It's a private-public partnership with HHS, FDA, hospitals, insurers, working to address these issues. Fortunately, we haven't seen any issues directly related to compromising the devices themselves, but as united with the ransomware and other issues, these have certainly become challenges. So in 2019, the HSSC published the Medical Tech Cybersecurity Joint Security Plan to provide device makers with a playbook on how to develop best-in-class cyber management. But clearly, much more work needs to be done, and we look forward to working with you and your colleagues to making sure that, again, as technologies evolve, we make sure that the hospital system, the patients, are ultimately protected with any cyber threats.
Thank you. I yield.
Senator King.
Thank you, Chair Murray, and thanks to our witnesses. 5 years ago, when Congress last addressed user fee reauthorization, I asked Dr. Woodcock of the FDA a question on the availability of biosimilar drugs. This is something that Senator Collins and I have done some work on together with the Biologic Patent Transparency Act. Dr. Woodcock told me then that biosimilars were being